Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to get straight to the insights from the source material. Basically, the shortcut to being informed fast.
That's the idea. We sort through all the noise to pull out what you really need to know.
And today, well, it's a tough one for a lot of people listening, I imagine. We're diving into Manchester United's recent, and let's be honest, pretty unexpected Europa League final loss against Spurs in Bilbao.
Yeah, that match had huge expectations riding on it, a chance for this new Amarim era to really make a statement, especially after a bit of an up-and-down season.
But nope. Instead, it ended 1-0, Brennan Johnson scoring. A night that was supposed to be about lifting a trophy just kind of fizzled out based on what the sources are saying. It didn't go to plan at all.
Right. And the material you've gathered really digs into the fallout, doesn't it?
Mm.
So our job today for this deep dive is to unpack all those layers, not just that they lost, but how the tactics maybe went wrong, the financial hit, which sounds pretty brutal, and what might happen next.
Let's get into it then. Okay, first up, the immediate analysis, right? The tactical side. The sources really seem to focus on the manager's plan, or maybe the lack of one on the night.
Yeah, what really jumps out when you read these reports is how Spurs, under Postecoglou, completely ditched their usual style. The high press,
Yeah.
all-out attack.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. One analysis basically said they set a trap.
A trap. How did
Yeah.
how did the sources describe that? Because yeah, you expect chaos from Spurs, pressing high.
Exactly. And that's what was so surprising. The material suggests Spurs just dropped deep. They stayed compact, really tight, and just suffocated United. Took away all that space in the middle, those half spaces where United like to operate.
Ah, okay.
So it forced United wide into these really predictable attacks. And the reports highlight this complete lack of rhythm from United. Just no ideas on how to break down that disciplined Spurs shape.
So United expected Spurs to come at them, but got hit with a low block they just couldn't solve. Is that the picture the sources paint? Like
Yeah.
tactical rigidity from United?
It seems so, yeah. The feeling you get from the analysis is that United were, well, unprepared for Spurs to switch it up so much. And crucially, they didn't seem able to adapt during the game.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't just an off night. The sources frame it like they were properly outthought tactically.
Mm.
And that 1-0 loss, obviously, wasn't just about missing out on a trophy. It meant no Champions League next season. The sources are pretty blunt. No excuses.
And that failure, the tactical misstep costing them the final and that Champions League spot, leads straight into what sounds like the really, really painful bit in these sources,
No.
the financial fallout.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the reports get quite alarming. Missing out on Champions League money isn't just about, prestige. It has immediate real-world effects. Several sources use this a very strong phrase. It's triggered a cost-cutting tsunami.
Wow, tsunami, that sounds drastic. What does that actually mean day to day according to the material? That's more than just like saving on paper clips.
It really is. It seems to mean big cuts right across the club. There's mention of staff layoffs, non-playing staff being affected. But the bit that really makes you sit up, reading the sources, is the potential hit to the actual playing squad, especially the young guys, the ones seen as the future.
You don't mean like Kobe Manu and
No.
Garnacho. The reports actually list them as potentially being sold. That feels huge. They're meant to be the foundation.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And it just shows, how deep this financial hole might be. These are the players fans assume are untouchable, right?
Right.
Building blocks for the next 5–10 years. But the material suggests they're now being looked at as, well, valuable assets that might have to be cashed in to balance the books.
Oh.
And then there's the one that's almost unbelievable.
Hmm.
The captain, Bruno Fernandes.
Wait, hang on. The sources are saying Fernandez could go too. I think I saw mention of Saudi Arabia.
Yes, exactly. One report specifically mentions a potential $100 million offer from Saudi Arabia for Bruno. I mean, putting your captain up for sale, even considering it, especially for that kind of money, it just screams financial pressure, doesn't it? According to this material anyway. It's not just rumor. The sources paint a picture of a club needing cash badly. But, amongst all this pretty gloomy financial stuff, the sources do also mention how the manager, Ruben Amorim, has reacted.
Mm.
And maybe some slight glimmers of hope on players coming in.
Right, Emerim. He faced the media, didn't he? What did the reports say about his position, his future? Is he staying?
Well, according to the material, yeah, he took responsibility after the match. The sources say he's basically said, look, if the board doesn't think I'm the right guy, I'll walk. But his intention, what he stated, is that he wants to stay and try to fix it.
Okay.
Which, of course, raises the big question the sources sort of leave hanging. How much actual backing can he get to rebuild if this financial tsunami is hitting?
Exactly. How do you fix things when you're making massive cuts? But you mentioned potential signings, like Matheus Cunha. Is that still on the cards?
Yeah, that's where it gets, well, interesting again. Just despite the cuts, the material does mention this potential 62.5 million deal move for Kuna.
Mm-hmm.
Still a target, apparently, to try and add some spark to the attack.
Huh.
It suggests that even with all this financial pressure, there might be some targeted spending, but, maybe funded directly by selling those big names we just talked about.
Right. So potentially selling Mainu or Garnacho or even Bruno to then buy Cunha.
Uh,
Well, that's a tough one for fans to stomach reading between the lines of these sources.
Definitely. And speaking of sort of out there ideas mentioned in the material, there's that one from Quentin Fortune, the former player.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, the Ronaldo thing.
Yes. The really ambitious one, maybe even revolutionary, you could say. Not just bringing Cristiano Ronaldo back as a player, but as a part owner.
A part owner. Wow.
The sources call it a wild but glorious dream. It's totally outside the box of normal transfer talk, isn't it? Suggesting a completely different way to bring in leadership or, well, investment. Could the legend actually come back to help rebuild the club from the inside? It's a really provocative thought thrown out there in the reports.
Okay, let's just pull back for a moment. Look at the big picture these sources are painting. It's not just a club feeling a bit down after losing a final. The analysis uses really strong words, doesn't it? Like, Manchester United is bleeding right now. It sounds quite severe.
It does. That financial reality, stemming directly from the tactical failure in the final, seems to be hitting incredibly hard, potentially forcing choices that maybe just weeks ago would have seemed completely unthinkable, like, taking offers for your best young players or your captain.
Absolutely. But there's also that crucial reminder in the source material, isn't there? That this club, historically, has been in tough spots before.
Yeah, there's that history of resilience, falling down and finding a way back up. They mention examples like Fergie's really difficult early years back in the 80s, or even the rebuild needed after Mourinho left.
Right.
So the question the material implicitly asks is that ability to rise again still there? Can they do it this time?
It's the big challenge, isn't it? For the club, for MRM, maybe for any new investment or ownership structure down the line. Can they handle this, well, unprecedented financial squeeze while also sorting out the team tactically on the pitch? So, just to recap what we've pulled from the sources today. We've seen the tactical disappointment under Amorim in that Bilbao final. We've seen the, frankly, brutal financial crunch triggered by missing the Champions League, potentially forcing sales of Mainu, Garnacho, even Fernandes.
Yeah, and Amarin saying he wants to stay and fix it despite that pressure. Then those contrasting potential futures, maybe selling key assets to fund someone like Cunha or that really wild Ronaldo part owner idea.
Yeah. It's clear from the material the club is in a really tricky spot right now. Precarious, maybe. Despite that history of bouncing back, the challenges look massive and they're all tangled up together.
Definitely. Tactical, financial, personnel, it's all linked.
So, thinking about everything outlined in these specific sources, the sheer scale of the financial cuts affecting everyone, the real chance of losing key players, young stars maybe, just out of necessity, and that need for a tactical rethink under a manager who's now under huge pressure. What aspect of United potentially rising again do you, listening to this, think is the most critical thing? Or maybe the most uncertain part right now?
It's a really complex puzzle. And the sources don't give easy answers, do they? The tactical,
Yeah.
the money, the players getting all of that aligned is going to be tough.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into your source material. If you found this useful, maybe share it with someone else who's interested in this, whether they're a United fan or just want to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and subscribe for more deep dives where we try to cut through the noise
Stay informed, stay curious.
and keep diving deeper.